I still remember the sound before I saw it. A laugh, low, breathless, and way too familiar. My front door had been locked, but I didn't even think twice about that as I walked down the hall. It was my house, my space, my sanctuary. When I pushed open the bedroom door, time didn't just stop, it shattered. There they were. Jason, my husband, sprawled across the sheets we'd chosen together last summer. Sheets that still smelled faintly like the lavender detergent I bought. And Sophie, my best friend since college, naked, tangled in them. But what burned hotter than the sight of her body was the glint of silver on her wrist. My bracelet. The one my mother gave me before she died. The one Jason swore he'd keep safe because he knew how much it meant to me. I hadn't worn it in months, keeping it tucked away in the little velvet box on my dresser. And there it was, circling Sophie's wrist like a trophy she thought she'd earned. I froze in the doorway, my throat locked, my stomach twisted so violently I thought I might throw up right there on the hardwood floor. Jason shot up, fumbling for the sheet, his face going pale. Sophie gasped, her hand snapping to her wrist, as if she could hide the bracelet by pressing it against her skin. "Vanessa," Jason started, but the word sounded weak, guilty. I didn't scream. I didn't sob. My voice came out like glass. "That's my bracelet," Sophie stammered. "It's not. He just—" "Vanessa, I can explain." "Explain?" I stepped closer, each word slicing. "You're in my bed, with my husband, wearing my mother's bracelet. What part of this exactly needs an explanation?" Jason dragged the sheet higher, trying to cover Sophie like I was the intruder. "Babe, listen." "Don't." I snapped the word so sharp it cut the air between us. My chest was on fire, but my hands were ice cold. "Don't you dare call me that." The silence in the room was unbearable. I could hear the whir of the ceiling fan, the faint honk of traffic outside, and Sophie's shallow breathing. Her eyes darted everywhere but me, shame staining her face. "Was it all a joke?" I asked, my voice cracking for the first time. "All those nights you told me she was like a sister? That you'd never even think of Sophie that way? Was that all just practice for this?" Jason rubbed his face, muttering, "It just happened, Vanessa." "It didn't mean—" I laughed. God, I laughed, and it came out so sharp it scared even me. "Didn't mean anything? You risked our marriage? You risked my trust. You brought her into the bed we slept in, where we planned our lives, and you let her wear my mother's bracelet. Tell me again how that doesn't mean anything." Sophie finally whispered. "I didn't want—" I turned on her. "Shut your mouth. You sat at my table. You held my hand at my wedding. You swore you'd always protect me like a sister. And now you're lying here with him, stealing pieces of me like they're yours to take. Don't pretend you didn't want this. You wanted everything I had." Her lips trembled. Jason tried to stand, but I stepped back, shaking my head. "Don't you come near me. You've already touched me with every lie you told." Something in me snapped. My hand flew before I could stop it, connecting with Jason's cheek. The sound cracked through the room like a whip. His head whipped to the side, and for once, he had no words. Sophie flinched like she'd been struck too. I didn't wait. I didn't need to hear another excuse. I yanked the bracelet off Sophie's wrist so hard she whimpered. Holding it in my palm, I felt the weight of everything they'd taken, everything they thought they could steal. "You can keep each other," I hissed, "because after tonight, you'll have nothing else." I turned, my heels pounding against the floor as I stormed out. Jason shouted my name. Sophie begged me to stop, but I didn't look back. My vision blurred with tears, but my steps were steady. Out of the bedroom, out of the house, out of the life they thought I'd just roll over and let them ruin. On the sidewalk, the night air hit me like ice. My hands shook as I clutched the bracelet. I wanted to scream, to collapse, to tear the whole world apart. But instead, I straightened my back. "I'll burn it all down before I let them win," I whispered to myself. That was the moment it shifted. Not just betrayal, not just heartbreak, a vow, a promise. Jason thought he could destroy me and still stand tall. Sophie thought she could crawl into my life and wear my mother's bracelet like she deserved it. But they hadn't met this version of me yet. I wiped my tears, slipped the bracelet back on my own wrist, and walked into the night. My chest still ached, but underneath the pain, something darker pulsed. Stronger. I was done being their victim. I was going to make them both wish they had never crossed me. And I wouldn't stop until I saw them crawling in the ashes of everything they thought they owned. I met Jason when I was 21. Still half a girl, half a woman trying to figure out what I wanted from life. He was already magnetic. The guy everyone at the beachside cafe noticed when he walked in. He had that smooth confidence, the kind that could sell you on anything, even a dream that didn't yet exist. And when he turned that charm on me, it felt like gravity. He told me from the start he wanted to open his own fitness studio, not just another gym, but a lifestyle brand. Venice is the place for it, he said, eyes glowing like he could already see his name plastered across the front windows. I believed him. I always believed him. When my mom passed, she left me her inheritance. Not millions, but enough to build a life on. I should have guarded it like she wanted, but Jason convinced me it was an investment in our future. So I put it all into his dream. Lease deposits, equipment, branding. I watched him cut the ribbon at the opening of his first studio, and the pride in his eyes made me forget I'd emptied my own savings. I thought it was ours, not just his. Sophie was there too. She'd been my best friend since college. The one who helped me move into my first apartment. The one who knew all my family stories. Who held me when my mom died. Jason always said she was like a sister. She was at every milestone. Our engagement party, our wedding, the grand opening of the gym. She even babysat my niece sometimes, slipping seamlessly into my family gatherings as if she belonged. Looking back, I see the cracks. I remember catching Sophie's hand on Jason's arm a little too long when she congratulated him on the studio. I remember his late nights at the gym, his vague excuses about staff meetings. When I asked, he'd laugh and say, "You're paranoid, Nessa. Sophie? Come on. She's basically family." And I let myself believe him because the alternative was too painful to face. But little things piled up. Sophie showing up with coffee just the way Jason liked it, even on mornings I hadn't told her he was working. Her sudden wardrobe upgrades, expensive bags I knew she couldn't afford on her salary. I told myself I was imagining things, because admitting the truth would mean admitting I'd built my life on a lie. The confirmation came from the one person I never expected. My younger brother, Alex. He called me one afternoon, hesitant, his voice tight. "Ness, I saw Jason today. He wasn't alone." My stomach sank. Who was he with? Silence stretched, then, Sophie. They were at that cafe on Rose Avenue, holding hands. She leaned across the table and kissed him like she didn't care who saw. I felt the air leave my body. I wanted to scream at him, tell him he was wrong, but I knew Alex wouldn't lie to me. His voice was steady, sad. "I didn't want to tell you, but you deserve to know." That was the moment I couldn't deny it anymore. Every suspicion, every uneasy glance, every lie I swallowed whole. It all crystallized into truth. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, and my best friend, the woman I trusted most, were already betraying me long before I opened that bedroom door. And it wasn't just my heart they played with. It was my money, my future, my mother's inheritance, my family's legacy. They didn't just break vows. They stole pieces of me I could never get back. But if they thought I'd stay broken, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The night after I walked out of that bedroom, I barely slept. I lay on my brother's couch, staring at the ceiling, the bracelet clutched in my hand like a weapon. My body shook with rage, but beneath the trembling, something clearer was forming. A plan. By sunrise, my tears had dried. My voice felt steadier. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for Jason to spin another excuse, or for Sophie to pretend she was still my friend. They'd taken too much already. This time, I was taking back control. The first move was money. I logged into our joint accounts, my fingers flying with purpose. Jason loved spending. New watches, dinners out, little business expenses that never quite made sense. But that was over. I froze our primary checking account and rerouted the savings into one under my name only. The inheritance money he thought was tied up in his business? I still had access to a portion of it in a separate account he'd forgotten existed. I drained it into a trust my lawyer cousin helped me set up years ago. Jason would wake up that morning thinking he had everything, but by noon, his cards would start declining. Next came the legal side. I dialed a number I'd saved but never thought I'd use. A family attorney recommended by my aunt during my wedding. Just in case, she had said. I brushed it off then. Now I understood. The attorney picked up, calm and professional. I told her everything, my voice cold, detached, like I was reading someone else's tragedy. She didn't flinch. We'll start paperwork today, she said. Don't warn him. Let him find out when he's already cornered. I packed methodically, not like a woman fleeing in tears, but like someone staging a move in chess. Clothes, documents, photos of my mom, and the bracelet. I left behind the things that didn't matter anymore. Wedding china, designer furniture, all the shallow stuff Jason liked to flaunt. Let Sophie sit on those couches. Let her sleep under those sheets. Every object left behind would remind them both of what they'd destroyed. The condo was next. It was in both our names, bought partly with my inheritance. I called a realtor, had her schedule an appraisal, and told her to mark it urgent. She didn't need details. She heard the steel in my tone and agreed. By the third day, the pieces were moving fast. I was staying temporarily in a small sublet near the beach, quiet and out of Jason's line of sight. He'd called me 22 times, left 7 voicemails. At first pleading, then angry, then pathetic. I didn't answer once. On the 4th night, he showed up at the sublet. I'd expected it. The pounding on the door rattled the frame. His voice carried down the hall. Vanessa, open the door, we need to talk. I let him pound until he was red-faced through the peephole. Then I opened it, just enough to lean on the frame, arms crossed. You moved money, he spat, his jaw tight. My card got declined today. Do you think you can just... I cut him off. Our card, Jason. And yes, I can. I already did. He blinked, thrown. You don't understand. The gym... No, I said, my voice sharp. You don't understand. You destroyed this marriage the second you let Sophie into our bed. You don't get to lecture me about money or loyalty or anything else. You made your choice. His face twisted, anger flashing. You're overreacting. It was a mistake. I smiled then, but it wasn't kind. No, Jason. The mistake was thinking I'd let you get away with it. For the first time since I'd known him, I watched the confidence drain from his face. He tried to push past me, but I held my ground, hand braced against the door. Don't test me, I whispered. You've already lost more than you realize. And then I shut the door. Behind it, his fists pounded again, his voice rising in desperation. But I didn't flinch. I leaned back against the door, the bracelet cool against my wrist, and felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't grief anymore. It wasn't shock. It was war. And I was already winning the first battles. The first crack in Jason's facade came sooner than I expected. 2 days after I froze the accounts, I got a text from my realtor. Your husband called me. He seemed surprised the condo's being appraised. He hung up when I said you'd already signed the papers. I smiled at the screen. Good. Let him feel what it's like to be blindsided for once. Later that same day, Alex sent me a screenshot of Jason's Instagram story. It was a boomerang clip of him raising a champagne glass at a rooftop bar with the caption, New chapter, unstoppable. Except I knew the truth. That glass was probably comped, because his card hadn't worked. And then the calls started. Not to me, but to people we both knew. A mutual friend messaged me. Jason's been asking if you're okay. He says you overreacted, that he wants to fix things. Is that true? Overreacted. I nearly threw my phone across the room. That was Jason's favorite word. My anger, my instincts, my boundaries, all minimized, painted as hysteria. Not this time. Meanwhile, Sophie wasn't glowing either. I ran into her landlord when I stopped by the old condo to pick up a few boxes. He leaned against the railing, cigarette dangling, and said, "You know, your friend owes me 2 months' rent. Thought she had some rich guy covering her bills." He laughed, bitter. "Guess not." I didn't answer, but inside I felt something like grim satisfaction. Let her scramble. Let her realize Jason's promises didn't buy security. Word spread quickly in Venice. Our social circle was tight, and gossip moved faster than ocean wind. By the end of the week, I couldn't walk into a cafe without feeling eyes on me, whispers tracing my steps. But for once, the whispers weren't cutting me down. They were slicing Jason. "He cheated with her best friend?" I heard one woman mutter near the smoothie bar. "In their own bed, with her bracelet on," another whispered back, almost gleeful. That detail, the bracelet, had already become legend. It followed him like a scarlet letter, proof of arrogance so bold it disgusted even people who used to adore him. My family, especially Alex, rallied fast. He showed up with groceries at my sublet, tossing bags on the counter. "You focus on the legal side," he said firmly. "I'll handle the small stuff." His voice carried an edge I hadn't heard before. Protective, almost fierce. He'd always been my kid brother, but now he looked at me like he'd go to war on my behalf. Jason must have sensed the tide turning because that weekend, he tried again. I was leaving the lawyer's office when I saw him leaning against his car across the street, sunglasses hiding his eyes. "Vanessa," he called, stepping forward. I kept walking. "Wait." He grabbed my arm, not hard, but enough to stop me. "Just hear me out." I yanked free. "Don't touch me." His jaw worked. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the panic underneath. "I'm sorry, okay? I screwed up. But this," he gestured vaguely. "Selling the condo, draining accounts, lawyers. You're overblowing this. We can fix it." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Fix it? You think a bouquet of flowers and a fake apology erases Sophie in my bed? My bracelet on her wrist? You killed this marriage the second you decided my best friend was worth more than my trust." He swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. "It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. Don't let it ruin everything we built." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so he couldn't mistake my meaning. "You ruined everything we built. And I'm not just walking away, Jason. I'm taking it all with me." For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He just stood there, mouth open, watching me walk away. That night, he sent me a string of messages, apologies, pleas, promises to change. Then, when I didn't respond, they turned angry. "You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back." But he was wrong. The only one crawling was him. The consequences were only just beginning, and I was the one pulling the strings. I knew Jason wouldn't stop. He was too proud, too addicted to appearances. And right on cue, the invitation came. A mutual friend texted me. "Jason's hosting a dinner at Harbor and Vine on Saturday. He says it's to clear the air. Are you going?" Of course I wasn't invited directly. He wanted to stage it, control the narrative. Harbor and Vine was one of those trendy Santa Monica spots where everyone was shoulder to shoulder, where you couldn't sneeze without someone posting it to their story. He thought if he could paint me as unstable in front of our friends, maybe even make Sophie look like his new true love, people would forget how the affair started. He underestimated me again. Saturday night, I walked into that restaurant in a fitted black dress, hair slicked back, heels clicking like a metronome of war. Heads turned the second I appeared, whispers trailing me as I crossed the room. Jason's eyes widened, his fork pausing midair. Sophie sat beside him, stiff and nervous, trying to pull her cardigan over the bare wrist where the bracelet used to shine. I didn't wait for permission. I slid into the empty chair at the end of their table, calm as ice. "Don't let me interrupt," I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The chatter around us dimmed. Jason cleared his throat. "Vanessa, this is unexpected." Is it? I pulled a slim envelope from my bag and laid it on the white tablecloth. You should have expected this the moment you lied to me. Sophie's face drained of color. Jason forced a chuckle, glancing around at our friends. She's still upset. You know how emotional? I cut him off. Upset? No, Jason. Upset was finding out you were working late when you were really at Sophie's apartment. Upset was gaslighting me every time I questioned you. I tapped the envelope. This is called proof. I slid the photos out, fanning them across the table. Grainy but clear. Jason and Sophie tangled in sheets, Jason's hand on her bare back, Sophie smiling like she'd won a prize. A few gasps echoed from the surrounding tables. Jason's fork clattered to the floor. Sophie reached for the pictures, but I slapped her hand away. Don't. You've already taken enough that doesn't belong to you. Jason's voice broke. Where did you get these? A private investigator, I said simply. Turns out when you're too busy sneaking around, someone else is watching, and now everyone gets to see exactly what kind of man you are. Phones came out. Screens lit up. I didn't stop them. Let the images spread. Let them crawl through every group chat in Venice Beach. Jason's face flushed crimson, veins bulging in his neck. You're making a scene. I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp enough to cut. No, Jason. You made the scene the moment you brought Sophie into our bed. I'm just giving it the audience it deserves. A ripple of laughter spread through the tables. Even people who weren't part of our circle were listening now. Sophie shrank into her chair, shoulders folding inward. I stood, straightening my dress. The whole room was watching. Perfect. My mother's bracelet, I said clearly, was the only thing I had left of her, and he let my best friend wear it while she lay in my bed. That's not love. That's theft. And it tells you everything you need to know about who they are. The silence was electric. Every eye in the restaurant locked on Jason and Sophie. Then I delivered it. The line that burned itself into the night. She wore my bracelet. He'll wear the consequences. I left the photos scattered like ashes on the table, turned on my heel, and walked out. Phones were still up, capturing every step. By the time I reached the valet stand, I knew it was already spreading. The hashtag would come later. The memes, the whispered retellings at brunches and gyms across the city. But I didn't need to see it trend. I'd seen their faces. Jason, stripped of his swagger. Sophie, shrinking like a shadow under the weight of truth. For once, I wasn't the one humiliated. I was the one holding the torch, setting their carefully built lies on fire. Jason never knew how to sit in silence. His ego thrived on noise, on eyes watching him, on people believing the image he built. So when the restaurant scene went viral, when those grainy photos of him and Sophie were circulating in private group chats, when the bracelet line became a running joke on Venice Beach gossip pages, I knew he wouldn't just take it. He'd fight back. And he started the only way he knew how. Instagram. 3 days after the confrontation, he posted a carefully curated video, sitting in his gym office with weights and branded gear in the background. His voice was low, practiced, almost rehearsed. Hey everyone, I just want to clear the air. There's been a lot of rumors and misinformation about me lately. I want to say first and foremost, I respect my wife, Vanessa. I always have. We've had challenges like any marriage, but some people are spinning lies and twisting moments out of context. Sophie is a close friend, nothing more. Vanessa's emotions are valid, but the truth has been distorted. Please don't believe everything you see online. He ended it with that fake half smile I used to find charming. His followers flooded the comments with mixed reactions. We believe you, Jason. Haters gonna hate. Wait, wasn't she wearing her bracelet, though? Sounds like gaslighting to me, bro. But Jason wasn't satisfied with mixed. He wanted full redemption. The next week, he accepted an invitation from a local lifestyle podcast, one of those shows that thrived on community gossip. They titled the episode, Fitness Mogul Speaks Out, The Truth Behind the Affair Rumors. He leaned into the microphone, shoulders squared, voice heavy with mock sincerity. "I'll admit, I made mistakes," he said. "I should have set boundaries with Sophie sooner. But I love my wife. I never betrayed her. This narrative that I cheated is a smear campaign, and it's painful that she's buying into it." The host nodded sympathetically, but when the episode dropped, the comment section roasted him alive. Boundaries? Dude, she had the bracelet on. He really went on a podcast to say gaslighting words with his chest. Vanessa deserves better. Period. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Jason was burying himself, but I wasn't going to rely solely on public ridicule. I had ammunition he didn't know about, and it was time to load it. Remember that private investigator? He hadn't just taken bedroom photos. He'd dug deeper. Hotel receipts, screenshots of Venmo transfers Jason had sent Sophie labeled with dumb cover-ups like groceries or Uber. Voice memos where Jason whispered, "I'll tell her soon, baby. Just trust me." I released them strategically, never from my account. First, an anonymous tip to a gossip page with the Venmo screenshots. Then, a drop to a local Twitter account known for dragging liars. Within hours, hashtags like BraceleTgate and Jason Exposed were trending in the Venice Beach bubble. Jason tried to clap back. He posted another video, more frantic this time. "Look, those screenshots are fake. Anyone can Photoshop a Venmo note. Don't let bitter people with an agenda poison your perspective." But the damage was already done. Someone compared the handwriting from the receipts to his gym contract signature. Identical. Another posted audio from his voice memo, overlaying it with a meme. "Just trust me, baby." Famous last words. Clients began canceling memberships at his gym. A sponsor for his new fitness supplement quietly pulled their deal. His staff whispered, "Morale tanking." One even DM'd me anonymously. "He's blaming us for everything. Thank you for exposing him. We're done covering for him." Sophie didn't escape either. Screenshots of her bragging texts leaked, things she'd sent to a friend months earlier. "He says he'll leave her soon. I'll finally get what I deserve." The internet had no mercy. She deactivated her Instagram within 24 hours. By the third week, Jason was cornered. Every attempt to paint himself as the victim only fueled the fire. The more he spoke, the more evidence surfaced. It was like watching someone flail in quicksand. Every movement dragged him deeper. The final blow came unexpectedly. A fitness influencer with a bigger following than Jason stitched one of his denial videos on TikTok saying, "Bro, you're not the victim. You're just sloppy. Stop disrespecting women who supported you." The clip went viral overnight. Tens of thousands of likes, comments, and shares. Jason's name became shorthand for betrayal. I didn't have to celebrate loudly. I sat in my sublet, scrolling through the chaos, bracelet glinting on my wrist, and felt something I hadn't in weeks. Relief. Not joy, not yet, but satisfaction. He wanted to spin the story. Instead, the story spun him, chewed him up, and spat him out in front of everyone. When he finally texted me, "Please, make it stop. This is ruining my life," I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back 2 words. Good. Suffer. Because he wasn't just losing followers or sponsors. He was losing the mask he'd worn for years, and beneath it, there was nothing but the man who had betrayed me, stripped bare for the world to see. By the time Jason's face became a meme, I had already shifted my focus to the next stage, the legal strike. Public humiliation was satisfying, but humiliation fades. What lasts is the kind of loss you can't spin away, the kind written in contracts, court orders, and frozen accounts. My attorney, Lisa, was relentless. She sat across from me at her office table, a stack of documents neatly arranged, glasses low on her nose. "We don't just want divorce," she said. "We want dissolution with maximum recovery. You funded his business, correct?" "With my mother's inheritance," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. Every dollar of equipment, every lease deposit, every launch party. It all came from me. Lisa nodded. "Good. Then we'll make the case that his assets are marital property with you as the primary investor. We'll freeze his accounts and seize control of the condo. The paperwork went out the next morning. Within 48 hours, Jason received notice that his accounts were frozen pending litigation. I imagined him at the bank, pounding his fist on the counter, demanding answers from a clerk who could only shrug. Sophie's lifeline snapped with his. She had no money of her own. Jason had been her sponsor, her wallet, her excuse for the designer shoes she flaunted. Now she was just another tenant behind on rent, a liability landlords whispered about. The condo was next. The court granted an emergency motion for me to retain control, pending sale. Jason showed up at the appraisal, red-faced, trying to argue with the realtor. She handed him a copy of the order with my lawyer's signature at the bottom. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Meanwhile, Lisa worked through the business side. Jason's gym brand wasn't just a local hangout anymore. He'd expanded into supplements, merch, and a second location. But all of it had been funded with marital assets, and with receipts and bank statements, we proved it. Piece by piece, she dismantled his claim of sole ownership. When we filed, Jason's response was fury. He left me voicemails, his voice cracking between rage and desperation. "You can't take this from me. I built it. You don't even understand how hard I've worked." I deleted them without reply, because here was the truth. I understood better than anyone. I was the one who wrote the checks, who paid the bills when he was still dreaming big. He had never built it alone. The financial pressure triggered the family fallout. His father, Martin, was old school, a businessman who had reluctantly co-signed Jason's first big lease. When the scandal exploded, Martin called me directly. His voice was clipped, cold. I always warned him. I said, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you." And what does he do? Betrays the only person who believed in him. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I want you to know," Martin said. "He's on his own. I won't cover his debts again. I won't clean this mess up." I hung up with a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. Jason had always idolized his father, desperate for approval. Now the man who once funded him was shutting the door. His brother followed suit. I ran into him at a coffee shop and he pulled me aside. "I pulled my investment," he said bluntly. "He begged me, but I'm done. You should know you've got more support in this family than he does." The irony stung. They'd never fully embraced me when Jason and I married. But betrayal has a way of rearranging alliances. The court hearings dragged on for weeks, but every session was a victory. Jason showed up with a new lawyer every other time, clearly struggling to pay retainers. His suits looked worn, his jaw tighter. Meanwhile, Lisa laid out the case with precision. Bank transfers, receipts, my inheritance trail, the Venmo transactions to Sophie. The judge's expression grew darker each day. When the preliminary ruling came, Jason lost majority ownership of his gym brand. The accounts were divided, with the bulk shifted to me. Custody of the condo was granted in my favor, with instructions to sell and retain equity. His supplement sponsor withdrew officially, citing reputational concerns. I wish I could say Sophie stood by him through all of this, but by then, she'd already fled. Rumor had it she moved back in with her parents out in the valley. The girl who once strutted around in my bracelet was now dodging calls from debt collectors. The last time I saw her in person was outside the courthouse. She looked smaller, paler, stripped of the arrogance she used to wear like perfume. She tried to approach me, whispering, "Vanessa, please, I didn't mean—" I walked past her without a word. Some people didn't deserve even a response. Jason, though, he didn't get the luxury of silence. He got the full weight of loss. His gym staff revolted, half quitting within a month. His landlord filed notice on the second location for unpaid rent. The car he loved posting on Instagram was repossessed right out of the gym's parking lot. One night, Alex sent me a photo he'd snapped on the boardwalk. Jason was sitting alone on a bench, hoodie pulled over his head, staring at the ground. No friends, no Sophie, no family. Just a man whose empire had collapsed, brick by brick, until nothing was left. That image stayed with me. Not because I felt sorry for him, but because it reminded me of the vow I made the night I walked out with the bracelet in my hand. He would lose everything, and now he had. By the time the final ruling came, Jason was broke, homeless, and irrelevant. And I was free. It happened on a gray afternoon outside the courthouse. The final divorce ruling had just been signed, the ink barely dry. I walked down the marble steps, clutching a manila folder full of documents that confirmed what I already knew. Jason had nothing left. The condo was gone, the business gutted, his accounts drained. Sophie had disappeared from the picture entirely. And there he was, waiting at the bottom of the steps like a shadow I couldn't shake. Jason looked nothing like the man I once married. His suit hung loose on his frame, creases in the fabric where it hadn't been pressed. His hair was unkempt, the sharp lines of his jaw lost under the strain of sleepless nights. He shoved his hands deep into his pockets, eyes darting around as if he was embarrassed to be seen. "Vanessa," he called softly, almost a whisper. I kept walking, heels echoing against the stone. He stepped forward, blocking my path. "Please, just stop for a second." For a moment, I studied him. This man who once commanded rooms, who strutted through Venice like he owned the coastline. Now, he looked small, pathetic. "What do you want, Jason?" My voice was flat, sharp as glass. He exhaled hard, rubbing his face. "I don't know where to start. I know I screwed up. I know I lost everything. But I never thought it would come to this." His eyes flicked to mine, desperate. "I loved you, Ness. I still do. Can't we just find a way back?" I laughed once, cold and humorless. "Find a way back? To what? To me funding your dreams while you crawled into bed with my best friend? To me ignoring every red flag you waved in my face? There is no way back." He flinched, but pressed on. "I was stupid. I let temptation ruin me. Sophie, she meant nothing. You know that, right? You were always the one. You're still the one." I shook my head slowly. "You let her wear my mother's bracelet. Don't you dare stand here and tell me she meant nothing." His face crumpled. "I was weak, okay? But you've made your point. You've taken the house, the money, the business. You won. Isn't that enough?" "No," I said firmly, meeting his eyes. "This was never about winning. This was about truth. About you finally facing the destruction you created." He stepped closer, lowering his voice, trying to resurrect the charm that used to disarm me. "Vanessa, I don't have anyone left. My dad won't even answer my calls. My brother won't look at me. Sophie's gone. I'm living out of my car. I don't even know who I am anymore." His voice cracked. "But you always saw the best in me. Can't you see it again? Please." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us. His eyes shone, his shoulders slumped, his pride shattered. This was his final act, begging, hoping I'd pick up the pieces he'd smashed. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I stepped forward, so close he had no choice but to meet my gaze. "You want me to see the best in you? The man who cheated in my own bed? The man who gaslit me, drained my inheritance, and paraded my best friend around like she was a trophy? That man is gone, Jason. You killed him yourself." Tears welled in his eyes. His voice broke. "I don't know how to live without you." I leaned in, lowering my voice to a whisper sharp enough to pierce. "You should have thought about that before you destroyed me." His face crumpled, a sob caught in his throat. He sank to the courthouse steps, hands covering his face, shoulders shaking. People walking past glanced, some whispering, but I didn't stop. I didn't comfort him. I straightened, my folder tight in my grip, and looked down at him one last time. "You're the architect of your own destruction." Then I turned and walked away, the sound of his sobs fading behind me. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter. My steps felt stronger. The chapter wasn't just closing. It was sealed. And Jason was nothing more than a ghost in my past. 6 months later, I hardly recognized my own life. The sublet by the beach had turned into a small but bright apartment of my own. The kind of place that smelled like fresh coffee and possibility instead of betrayal. I'd started a wellness coaching business, something I'd always wanted but never had the courage to pursue, while Jason's dreams swallowed all the air in the room. Clients came to me for balance, for strength, for the kind of clarity I'd been forced to carve out of my own pain. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't building someone else's empire. I was building mine. The bracelet never left my wrist. Not because I needed a reminder of him, but because I needed a reminder of her. My mother, her legacy, her love. It no longer symbolized what was stolen. It symbolized what I reclaimed. People still whispered Jason's name around Venice, but it carried no weight anymore. He was just another cautionary tale, a man who burned everything down chasing what wasn't his to take. I heard he was couch surfing, sometimes spotted on the boardwalk, unshaven and hollow-eyed. Sophie had vanished completely, her accounts deleted, her presence erased. The girl who once thought she deserved my life was back to nothing. And me? I was thriving. My circle was smaller, but stronger. Friends who stayed proved their loyalty through silence and support, not gossip. My brother visited every weekend, his pride in me shining every time he said, "You're tougher than all of us, Ness." Some nights I'd walk along the beach at sunset, the Pacific stretched endless in front of me. The same stretch of water I once associated with Jason's promises now felt like my own horizon. Wide, untouched, mine. I thought about betrayal sometimes, about how it had gutted me, broken me into pieces I didn't know I could put back together. But standing there, toes in the sand, I realized something. Betrayal doesn't just destroy. It reveals. It shows you who someone really is. And, if you let it, it shows you who you really are too. I was no longer the girl who ignored red flags, who poured her inheritance into someone else's name, who mistook loyalty for love. I was a woman who had walked through fire and come out sharper, clearer, stronger. Jason thought he'd taken everything from me, but he never understood the truth. He hadn't taken my future. He'd only freed me from his. I tightened the bracelet around my wrist, lifted my chin, and walked back toward the life I'd rebuilt. My story didn't end in that bedroom, or at that restaurant, or even on those courthouse steps. It began here, in freedom. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support means everything.